It seems to me that the key to living a spiritual life is remembering. What do we mean by living a spiritual life? Well, that probably means different things to different people. To me, it just means honouring the spiritual aspect of ourselves. And what do we mean by spiritual? I guess for me, spiritual is just being in a state where you can see the sacredness of everything. A state where you're at one with everything. A state of peace and clarity. No different to, the true nature of reality of how everything is. I'm talking about a life that supports my awareness of the nature of reality, the true, genuine nature of myself and reality in every single moment of the day. So that's what it is for me. But then, we live our lives and things pull us out of that sense of awareness, of that sense of, spacious openness. And so we can live for days, weeks even, and just the spiritual aspect just kind of can just go out the window. So having some method for reminding us really helps, I think. If you're a person who wants to have this sense that you're living a spiritual life. And for me, living a spiritual life is living, a full, genuine kind of a life, where you're a rich life, a life of heart and a life of awareness. And that's the kind of life I want to lead. So I need ways to help me to remember to do that. On a good day, it's kind of that happens naturally, but that's not every day. If you're someone like me who's come out of a religion where you had a lot of support for living a spiritual life, and then that's gone, and you have to find other ways to help you remember to live a spiritual life. That's if you want to keep that sense that you are, really fostering that aspect of yourself. This genuine who we really are is with us, and the nature of reality, it's there anyway, whether we tune into it or not. But the life that we live, being so dependent on, the physical world, pulls us away from that. And our training as children and our education and getting out and getting jobs and having families and all of that. It can add obscurations, it can add layers of veils on top of that true essential nature that we have. And so it's really easy to just live our lives without anything to help us remember. So how do we remember? Well, there's lots of different ways. You might have your own little keys to helping you to remember. But when I think about living a spiritual life, what comes to mind are 4 aspects of a spiritual life, which this comes to me from Tibetan Buddhism. But it isn't Tibetan Buddhism. Like, it's one of those things which is just like a truth. It's not specifically a Tibetan Buddhist truth. And these 4 pillars of a spiritual life, 4 things that help us to remember the spiritual aspect of ourselves and everything, are meditation, contemplation, compassion, and devotion. Now you might go, devotion, no, that's gurus and stuff. Okay, the word devotion is problematic, but I'll get to that later. First of all, let's look at meditation. Most of us know what meditation is, and if you're like me and you've had 20 years of experience meditating, then you know what I mean by meditation. And there's lots of levels of meditation, but it doesn't really matter, what kind of meditation you do, or where you're at with your meditation. In terms of living a spiritual life, it's good to just set aside some time to meditate. And the reason for that is because through meditation, you get some space from the chatter in your mind. You get some space from your thoughts and emotions, which allows you to deal with your life and your mind in a way that is more aware, in a way where you're not under the control of random thoughts, where you don't automatically act out of whatever emotion might arise in you at any time. It allows you a bit of space to examine, a bit of space to let go of anything that's not important. And it allows you to find some space, some peace, and some clarity in your mind. And I think that is the most important thing, not just for living a spiritual life, but for actually operating effectively in the world. Without developing that sense of separation from our thoughts and emotions, we're just at their mercy. It means that we're just living our life virtually unconsciously. So developing some awareness of our motivations and, all that stuff that goes through our minds, and allowing ourselves to be free of that is a life skill that will help everybody, whether they are remotely interested in living a spiritual life or not. So it's a matter of just putting aside some time for that. Now, that might be every day, it might be once a week, might be once a month, doesn't matter. Okay, it's just remembering to put aside some time for that. And if you do a little bit of meditation every morning, that alone will remind you, it will help you to remember throughout the day the spiritual aspects of yourself and reality. So that can just be enough. Contemplation works with a different level of your mind. It works with your intelligence. It works with your critical thinking faculties. So when you contemplate, you're actually taking, maybe a phrase out of a book that you're reading, and you're evaluating it. Is this true? Is this not? How does this resonate with my being? How have I seen this in my life? When I just sit with the words of this, how does that affect me? How does that make me feel? So it's that kind of examination. And that's more the traditional sort of Buddhist idea of contemplation. But I also take that further into an examination of ourselves, our lives, our beliefs, our prejudices. So this is where working on our emotional baggage comes in. I think it's important that we all do this at some point in time, because as children, we make decisions about ourselves based on our experience. And if we've had bad experiences as a child, we're likely to have formed some beliefs which will limit us as adults. One, for instance, that some people form is I'm unlovable. That's an easy thing for a child to decide if they simply don't get the level of love and support that they need. So if you don't examine a belief like that and you carry it through your whole life, it's going to limit you your whole life. And it's unconscious. You don't know it's there. So we need to examine such things so we can go, I can see why I made that belief, but it's actually not true. It's it's actually not relevant to me now as an adult. Therefore, that belief no longer applies. I can drop that belief. And I'll probably have to put something in its place to help pare it back a bit, because these beliefs can be really, really solid. Some people use affirmations to counteract some sort of negative belief. For me, I had a belief that I was weak. So for, many months, maybe a year, I woke up every morning and said, I'm strong. I actually had written on my mirror a little sticky note. It was, every day, in every way, I'm getting stronger and stronger. And a friend used my bathroom, and he came out and he said, why have you got written on your mirror, every day in every way, I'm getting stranger and stranger? Because he misread what I said. So I always remember that. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic of how to work with beliefs. But they're not easy to uncover unless you really look for them, because they're unconscious. So getting a book that delves into beliefs, that kind of thing, is helpful. And this is where a therapist of some kind is really helpful, just to uncover any of those kind of beliefs that are holding you back. So for me, that's part of contemplation. And that might manifest in your life as having 6 sessions with a therapist, just with the purpose of uncovering any childhood beliefs that you're carrying on as emotional baggage. So that, for me, is part of that. So it's a matter of making space in your life for this kind of contemplation. And then there's compassion. I think most people would agree that compassion, being a compassionate person, being a kind person, empathetic person, that's really a big part of living a spiritual life. And most people who have a spiritual life are aiming to be kind people. I think, I hope. At least that's how I feel it should be. I think we delude ourselves that we are living a kind life when maybe we are not, but we might be being kind to a certain kind of person and not kind to another kind of person, which is why that examination of beliefs is so incredibly important. But using the idea of compassion to help you live a spiritual life might be as simple as getting up in the morning and saying to yourself, I'm going to be kind to everyone today. And then at the end of the day, you look back and you go, okay, was I kind to everyone? And then you might pinpoint a point where you weren't that kind. You could have been kinder. And then you say, well, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go and be kind to that person. I'm going to really make an effort. And so you set up this intention and an evaluation for each day. And that's a really powerful way to increase a quality in yourself that you want to increase. So you could do formal practices. You could do loving kindness practice. You could do, the practice of equanimity, practice of joy. All of these kinds of things you can do in a formal way, or you can just simply, every time you go out, or you go, okay, I'm going out now, and I'm going to smile at everybody. Doesn't matter, whatever it is. Like, it's just when you look at your life, putting something into your life that helps you to remember to develop that side of yourself. Doing that will help you to feel like you're living a spiritual life and that you are kind of developing your capacity more. And there's devotion. It's a very problematic thing. Devotion is very problematic. And it's problematic because we always think of devotion as being devotion to something or someone. So it's, oh, Guru, oh, God, oh, Allah. And the problem with that is that the focus is outside on something else. That's problematic because it takes you away from what the idea of devotion, I think, genuinely is. And for me, devotion is a state of being. It doesn't have to be to anyone or anything. It's a state. It's a state of receptivity to the truth. And by truth, I mean the truth of reality as it actually is, free of all your concepts about what it is, free of all the filters, that like prejudices that you kind of see the world through. So an open receptivity to the truth of reality, for me, that's devotion. And in that is gratitude. Gratitude to everything, particularly what's good in your life. So why is this state of devotion important? This state of appreciation? I think it's because it's like knowing what it is you're aiming for. It's sort of a bad word because we have it anyway, so it's not that we're aiming to get something, it's aiming to develop our awareness of our true state. If we have an appreciation for that, then we're likely to do whatever it takes to come to that state of being. So it's like developing the inspiration, if you like, to do all the other things. And if you take this guru principle idea, I mean, in Tibetan Buddhism, it's become very external. There's all this kowtowing to the Lama and doing as you're told and all this stuff. But that's not really what that's about, just in a straight spiritual sense. In the Tibetan Buddhist practices, the guru is your inner being. It's the nature of your mind, and the nature of everything is actually what Lama means. That's the true meaning of the word Lama in the practices. So what you're developing is an appreciation, an openness, a gratitude to that aspect of yourself. And so taking time to develop some sense of gratitude for the spiritual aspect of our lives will help to inspire us, for instance, to do our meditation practice. So how do we, put devotion into our lives? I think probably it's a good idea to drop the word devotion, because it has some very problematic overtones, mostly this kowtowing to something outside of yourself, and replace it with gratitude. Gratitude and a receptivity to the truth. And really, gratitude, if you take it large enough, if you can look at a flower and be deeply grateful for that flower, that expands to this deep gratitude that anything exists, and a gratitude for the magic of how it exists. So that's actually kind of inspiration. And also, gratitude is part of living a spiritual life. So even if you just go, forget devotion, and just say, okay, I'm going to take some time in my life to be grateful. That's really helpful. Other than that, it can be part of your meditation. Just when you find yourself in that open, clear state, just have a sense of gratitude for it. Honor it. And that will inspire you to go back and into that state again. So those are just ways that you can help yourself to remember what's important. They're kind of like components of a spiritual life. And if you make time in your life for those things, then it will support you to fully develop those aspects of yourself. And I think for somebody who wants to live a spiritual life, that makes for a very satisfying life. So we can do none of that. And I think at some points in our lives, it's important for all of us to do none of that, to just, drop it all and just live our life. Because after you've done a lot of focused remembering, it becomes part of you anyway. But at the same time, after, 3 years of doing nothing, I'm finding that it's now really good to just take some time to meditate in the mornings, and that it deepens my ability to remember, to turn my mind in. So I hope you find that helpful. It's just one framework for helping you to remember the different things that encourage us to live a spiritual life and develop and nurture the spiritual aspect of ourselves. So thanks for listening. I hope you found this helpful. Ciao.